Hi, I'm Alexa. This is real life. One of my first videos is titled Promises, Promises, Words Have Power. And let me tell you, I've been watching the news about the general election in the United Kingdom, and it's not, the comments I'm making are not just about the Labour Party, and then the Conservatives before them. It's about any politician anywhere. It's about anyone in any type of leadership role. I'm talking about business. I'm talking about volunteer. I'm talking about, rec league, like someone trying to become band camp leader. I don't know. Wherever you are, people will always try and promise things. They will insinuate things as well, knowing full well that the people they are talking to will take it as a fact and as a promise. And then they will get themselves in trouble when they cannot deliver on those promises. I have this motto that I've sort of come up with of my own modus operandi over the years, and it is to underpromise and overperform. If you think about your life, think about someone who constantly tells you that, like, it's going to be great and they're going to do all this stuff for you and everything's going to be fantastic. And how often do they let you down? How often do they actually come through and live up to those expectations at that high level? I think that there's a lot of people who are extremely personable. They are extremely able to talk and read the room and adjust what they're saying as they're saying it based on the micro reactions that we have that will tell people if we are enjoying something, shocked by it, like what they're saying, dislike what they're saying. Micro expressions, that's the word. Took me a second there, but I got it in the end. And I have found that those people will say anything to get your support in whatever situation it is, right? Psychology tells us that we as humans are taken in by these outgoing, flattering, exuberant, positive people. It also tells us that they probably aren't the best leaders in terms of the actual work. There's a difference in being a leader who has to inspire people and that outgoing, exuberant, really, personable, public speaking is their jam. They're so on it. That's such an old school reference, their jam. Versus having to make the hard decisions and being calm and being steady and being I guess data driven is a way to say it. I'm struggling for the exact way of it. When times are tough and people are not happy, being able to promise people things and say words, it's going to make people mad. It's going to make people angry with you when you aren't able to actually follow it up with the actions that they are expecting. Now, this election in the UK, which is what really sent me down this kind of idea, it is much more of a repudiation of the Conservative leadership for the past 14 years and how there have been scandal after scandal. There have been 4 different prime ministers in that time. The previous 3 have all had to resign due to scandals. And the 4th one, while there didn't need to be a general election, and really kind of wondering why he called it. I mean, he may have not wanted to be prime minister anymore because it was kind of rough going for him there. He called this general election. So when the party comes into power in England through a general election, they have 5 years before the next election, unless a snap election is called for whatever reason prior to that 5 years. So this was not at the 5-year mark, and yet they called it, and they were stunningly defeated. The Labour Party won greatly, and the outgoing prime minister, his individual race was extremely close, and he almost lost his seat. So the way it works in England is there isn't a separate election for the prime minister and what is kind of the equivalent of Congress. The election is for Congress, which is the House of Commons, and the party who gets the most seats, if they pass a certain threshold, their leader automatically is going to become the prime minister. And if they don't get enough seats, they have an opportunity to form what is called a coalition government. So there are multiple parties in England. The main three, and I say that kind of generously, would be the Conservatives, Labour, and then the Lib Dems. But you also have others such as Green Party, Scottish National Party. I believe there's one for Northern Ireland. There is what was formerly UKIP. I don't think it's called that anymore. And I think there might be one or two others. Everything below the first three, the Conservative, the Labour, and the Lib Dem, they have like between 1 and 10 seats out of 650 or something. So the fact that Labour won so many is not because people are inspired or interested in Labour's policies. They are very much not happy with the Conservative policies. And what got me on this idea of words and promises and not being they make promises they know they can't keep, right? So if you think about the US, if a person is running for Congress and they're having their debate with their opponent in their district, they're going to make promises. When I get into Congress, I'm going to make this happen. How? How can you promise you're going to make something happen when in the US, to get something into law, you have to have, I believe it's 217, but it could be 218 votes in Congress. For many things, you need 51 votes in the Senate. There are some topics which require a 67 vote out of 100. And you need whoever is in the office of the president to also agree with you. So add that up. You need 270 people to agree with you. You can't promise that you're going to make anything happen. Now you can promise you're going to work to make it happen. That's different. And as long as you do work to make it happen and make sure your constituents see what your work is doing, then, you've kept your promise, sort of. The outgoing prime minister conceded, and the incoming prime minister, the Labour leader, he was giving his victory speech, and I was just sitting there thinking, he's got to be really careful. People are really upset. People are hurting. I mean, really hurting. And economically, they are hurting. Physically, they are hurting. Like, emotionally, they are hurting. There's a whole load of hurt going around. And while this election was not a referendum on how popular the Labour Party platform is, it really was saying we don't like what the Conservatives have done. If Labour is not able to come in and make an impact that is noticeable, and this is the key thing, noticeable in the voters' lives, So you're talking about millions of people's lives. People will turn on labor, right? They will. It happens. The pendulum always swings back and forth. No matter where you are, no matter what country you're in, it may take longer in some than others, but the pendulum will always swing back and forth. Labor needs to make an impact, and I don't know what they can do in a enough amount of time to make that impact. Now, technically, they do have 5 years, but as we saw with the outgoing prime minister, there will be a lot of pressure if stuff is not getting done. If people are still hurt and angry, that rage will turn on labor. And I was reading these quotes from his speech, and I just thought some of what he's saying is probably the right tact. Like, this country has had 14 years of mess, of mismanagement. We're not going to fix it overnight. But we are in this together. We are in this for you. We are going to make this happen. We will work towards it. We'll, it really was that band together message. But then some of the things he said were really, you've made a change. And while he might have been talking about the obvious change from a conservative prime minister and party in power to the Labour Party, people are not going to think that. People are going to hear a change. You've made a change. You've made a difference. And they are going to look around their life and say, did it make a difference? Can I see this difference? Where is this difference? Are my groceries less money? Is my NHS better when I need it, the National Health Service? Do I get my doctor's appointments, my prescriptions? Is my paycheck better? They are going to look around to see what is affecting them in their microcosm, which is what all of us have, is a microcosm of our own lives. And I don't know what Labour can do. I don't know what any party could do to make a massive amount of difference in the situation that they've been handed over there. Now, I do say that, but in the US, the change in 2021, the current administration was handed a horrible set of cards. And when you look at the actual data on the economy, on jobs, on trade, on everything, there is absolute incredible improvement. The US is basically leading the world and raising up other economies because of how strong the US economy is right now. But data doesn't always matter if emotions get in the way. So I don't envy Labour at this point. They have a real tightrope to walk in terms of they've got to get stuff done that affects people, directly impacts them in their daily lives in a very short amount of time, with a whole stack of stuff that I don't know what they can change very quickly in terms of, let's say, taxes or the budget or whatever. They might be able to change a lot of stuff immediately. I'm not as knowledgeable about how the UK works versus the US and the budgets that Congress and the Senate pass and all of that. I know more about the US budgets than the UK. Maybe they are going to be able to make a difference within the next 3 to 6 months in people's lives, directly in their homes. They feel like something has changed for the better. If they don't, they could be facing the pressure to do a snap election in a year or two. So it's going to be very interesting. Considering that I'm certainly not an expert on psychology. I know enough to be dangerous, not enough to make a difference, is where I feel like I am. If I know this, the people who are advising the Labour Party or any party should be able to give them concrete data-backed strategies, not just on what actions to actually take, but on what to tell people, how to avoid these pitfalls of making grandiose promises that they cannot keep. And when they don't keep them, will come back to bite them in the behind, right? I find it fascinating because there are cycles in any situation, in any power, and the cycles can be short, they can be a few years apart, they can be decades long, right? These cycles go backwards and forth, and it's always because people get sick of one side or people are emotionally swayed for whatever reason to another side. It's never about the data, it's truly about emotions. Don't know what that says about us as people, that we're so fickle as to vote against our best interests if we are emotionally invested in something, but this is what we are, this is who we are. And I find it fascinating. And so it's been on my mind, so I thought I would jump on and talk about it today. I find it, they knew what they were doing by holding it on July 4th, when they know the former colonies, I should say, had their July 4th celebration. So if you were able to celebrate July 4th, I still have my little sparkly shirt. I only wore it for like 2-3 hours yesterday, so I was like, it's so pretty. I'd saved it. I hadn't worn it yet. It's got the blue. I hope you had a good holiday if you were able to celebrate it. And I hope that no matter where you are, if you are able to vote and you have voted, I do hope that the people who you voted for are actually working in your best interest. They won't be able to do everything that any of us want. There's always when you have more than one person, there's competing interests across the board, but we have an opportunity as people to come together and make something good. It will just take more time than we want it to. And we can't get discouraged. We have to keep the end goal in sight. And we have to be able to roll with the punches when the unexpected comes up. You face it and you continue and you head straight to where you keep going to where you would like to be as your end goal. This probably isn't the video for everyone. Like I said, I'm fascinated by psychology and how we can influence each other. So if you made it this far, thank you. And as always, be kind to yourself.